Welcome, everyone. This is Carrie Gatto from Keller Williams Realty, and this webinar is being hosted today by Nancy Michaels from Nancy Michaels Interior. She's obviously an interior designer, and she is going to share some of her professional tips and tricks for timeless decorating. So, whether I don't know if some people are thinking of, putting their home on the market and selling, or just want to enjoy their environment, their home more, these will be some very valuable tips. So, without further ado, take it away, Nancy.
Okay, thank you so much. It's great to be here. I'm going to, I have to wear these glasses. I'm so sorry, everyone. I'm going to share my screen. No judgment on how many windows I have open, okay?
Oh, and I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that I am muting everyone just so we don't get too much feedback. But Nancy is encouraging questions. So if you want to either put questions in the chat or unmute yourself, that's okay. And Nancy will answer as she deems appropriate. So yeah, interactive is good, but I am muting everyone just for the sake of feedback.
Okay, can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, great. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for having me on. And I guess the experience or the realization I've come to came from my background in real estate, which probably started about 20 years ago. And at first, it really was like a love, something I really enjoyed doing. And I was able to find some houses that needed a lot of love and restore them. And sometimes I would rent them out. Sometimes I would, and then I usually would come back in and live in it before selling it. And the thing that I think made me successful in doing it is that I really chose things that I think are sort of not only non-offensive, but beautiful in their own right. And they don't have to be totally crazy expensive either. So I'm going to go through some of those tips with you tonight. But that's really what made me inspired to talk about timeless decorating, because I really do think that you can't go wrong with this. That's, I guess, my main opinion here. My definition of timeless decorating is that it's foolproof because it's really about choosing items that you love, that really function well for you in your current situation. I think sometimes we think too far ahead, or we are living way too far in the past, and we're choosing items based on that instead of where we are today. And everything that I think that you should have in your home should be something that you look at and think is beautiful. Even functional things can be very beautiful. But I am definitely a big supporter of utilitarian items and function over form. So as much as I love a beautiful room and I love to see something that's really beautiful and interesting, it really has to be functional too for you. Some of these tips, I think I have about 7 or 8, don't hold me to that, but are basic sort of guidelines that I just want you to think about in terms of whether you're, creating a new home that you want to move into, or redecorating, or totally renovating. And if you have questions too at any point, feel free to just chirp in, because some of it may seem confusing. So I want to make sure it's clear to you. But when I say a neutral palette, this is a room that has a neutral palette, but there's color in it. There's color in it, and there's visual interest because of that green hutch. The chair pads, I believe, are red. But you can see, like, it's a very sort of clean palette without being really stark or because I think that can happen a lot of times too when we just do all neutral. It almost looks clinical in a way, and that's not what you want. But when you're investing in big furniture pieces also, my recommendation always is to choose things that are a neutral palette. So things like a sofa, things like chairs, And they don't necessarily have to be. If you have a very neutral sofa, you can complement that with a patterned or colored chair. Um, uh, this rug is extremely neutral, and normally, for me, my personal taste is that I like some color in the rug, but I do keep most other things pretty neutral, and then I bring in colors from that rug. Uh, so that's another. There's an exception to every rule here, um, and so I mean I think that serves the point. There'll be other examples I think that I can relate back to too when as we go through this. Symmetry is another I'm a big fan of. And this is a room that you can see that has got a lot of symmetry to it, with the fireplace and the doors and the transoms and the windows above it. Same thing with the entertainment center. It's got the window seats next to it. So it's very symmetrical. I think sometimes the challenge can be for people if you don't have a room that already has that or that you can create that. And this was a major renovation that was happening. This house is an example of. So we were able to decide that way ahead of time. But sometimes you're not going to be able to. You have to deal with what you have, and you might have a window that's just off center, and how do you make that look more balanced? And one of the ways that you can do that is to get a larger curtain rod and bring one piece of the curtain to the end of that window, so that it looks symmetrical. So you may be covering part of the wall with it to make it look balanced. uh, I'm just trying to think of other things. Like built-ins are great because you can make them so symmetrical. You can do it certainly even with outdoor plants, near your front door. Having two of the same, boxwoods would be beautiful. Uh, there's even symmetry too, which I didn't even think about it until I'm looking at this now. But in like the two chairs near the fireplace, the two leather sofas. Doesn't always have to be that way. There's a lot of symmetry in this room. Doesn't have to be that way all the time. But this is just a good example of sort of how a room can have a lot of balance by using symmetry. Classic materials. Now, this is something that I'm in the middle of two kitchen renovations for clients of mine. And it's so funny because they're so completely different, their decisions that they made and what they've decided on. But when I've had to renovate a home for the purpose of selling it, this is not something I knew that I was going to be in forever, because maybe I would have made different choices. I think, if you fall in love with a marble tile backsplash that you just love and this is your forever home, then you absolutely should go for that. If you're moving in 6 months to 3 years, I wouldn't recommend it because it's a lot of money that you're tying up in that. And what is personal to you in terms of taste may not be to everybody, all of the buyers out there. And Carrie can speak to that in much greater detail than I can. But this picture on the left is a bathroom that I wish I had the before, because it was absolutely, it was just a mess. The upstairs, like the ceiling was coming in uh, right around the shower area down to this bathroom. And what we ended up doing is we had hardwood floors going in the entire home. So I decided to continue hardwood floors into the bathroom. And I know probably 90% of you are saying, I would never do that in a bathroom. And there are some risks, obviously, if you are, afraid of flooding of any kind, or, I think that you need to take that into consideration. But it gave, a very streamlined sort of look to the home, because it was a very small home also. So there was no stopping and going in terms of floor patterns. I think that's another big thing that if you can stick to one type of flooring throughout your house, it's it's a great thing to do, because it's easier on the eye. The eye doesn't stop, and I'm in a different place now, and I broke that rule. I did black and white tile in my entryway, and I'm in a condo in Boston, which is very small. And I carried that through too into the kitchen because I felt like that was more authentic to the time that this building was built and where people lived in it. And that was what resonated with me. And hopefully, I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. So I just did what I wanted here. But for this bathroom, what I did is I looked at, and I can give you the names I know are Memoirs, Devonshire toilet and pedestal sink, Home Depot. I got the tub also at Home Depot, along with the glass shower doors. Glass shower doors are great when you have a small bathroom too, because it really does give more, it makes it appear larger. And what you can't see in the back, which is unfortunate, but you can see it in the picture below, is I did the entire inside of that tub shower unit in just white subway tile. And subway tile is literally what they used in subways. They come in all kinds of shapes and sizes now, or at least sizes and colors. I just used white. I just kept it very simple. In the picture below, that's a kitchen that was also renovated. It was a kitchen dining area that a wall was taken down, a door out to a sunroom was taken away, and we decided to do open shelving there because it was it again, and open shelving can be great. I have it actually in the other kitchen as well. It can be great when you really don't want to have upper cabinets take up all that visual space in a kitchen. And I know probably some of you were thinking, I would never want to have open shelving because I'd have to put everything back in exactly the place that I put it in. But what's amazing about open shelving is you just do that automatically. It's not like you have to go back and redo things. You just make a place for it and you put it back. And it's I find it, especially again in smaller spaces, that it can be really functional. But subway tile is a great thing. You know, kitchens run the gamut. I mean, white is always safe, but yeah, I think two-tone kitchens now are becoming really popular, and you see a little bit of that in the second picture below with a grayer island. Um, that countertop, the butcher block, was actually purchased at IKEA, but the splurge was on the countertops, which are marble in that photo and the one below. Uh, so you can always, mix things too. And it really, if it's done well, you really you can't see the difference in terms of pricing. It looks pretty consistent. Um, and the one above, this is that house that actually the bathroom belonged to. Um, is again open shelving. I kept the same kind of color to the hardware, and this is, I think it's oil and bronze, or it might be black, but um, I got a remnant, which is another thing to look at if you ever are considering, remodeling, or even just redoing your countertops over. You can get great prices on remnant, um, granite, marble, and this is actually a black. You can't really see it in great detail, but I went with a black countertop because I had so much white in there. And then I did, the splurge in this, and it's a very tiny space, so I could do it pretty easily, was the marble uh, mosaic kind of backsplash that you can probably see a little bit of in that picture. So I guess what I'm saying here is you want to choose things that will stand the test of time and that will be pretty non-offensive to a potential buyer. And this is again is only if you're selling. If you're not, you can do whatever you want. But I personally think though you can't really go wrong with some of these choices because they really do look classic. They look like they will last forever. It was funny when I bought this condo and I started to renovate it. I did want to keep the bathrooms very much to the time of when this building was built, which was very very old, long time ago, 1899. And when we started to got everything, I found the exact tile that I was using in the bathrooms in what is now my kitchen. which was a bathroom because this was a hotel. So it's just amazing that, these products still are around for this many years. And that is because they're classics.
Nancy,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Could I just ask a quick question? Oh, that's so funny because I was gonna ask you what you thought of the black kitchen trend. Looks like this picture has a little of that in it.
Well, this
Black
is,
cabinet.
so I'm contradicting myself. This is my kitchen in Boston, which is literally the size of a bathroom. And when I first showed my mother a picture of these cabinets, she's like, "Oh, it's so dark." And the truth is, I have a huge window, like floor to ceiling, to the right of that you can't see in that photograph. Um, so it really isn't. It isn't that dark. I mean, I don't find it that dark. This is not a black. It's a gray, and it's got wood grain in it, which is another thing I never thought I might have gone for. I do like painted wood, especially if it's not in great condition. I know a lot of people just want to hold on to that wood, even though, but if it's really in need of repair, you have to either restore that, which quite frankly would take a lot more time and money, or you could simply paint it. But yeah, in this situation, it is a darker gray. It's definitely darker for that small space. Um, I I don't mind if you're using black. I love black, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. I think that having black elements is a good thing to have in a home. Um, but I would do something maybe like the island, or maybe the lower cabinets if you don't have an island, and make the top cabinets a little bit lighter. Uh,
That's a good
and I think
idea.
that gives it some dimension, visual interest, and that can work well. And the other color too that's huge now is like green. I'm seeing green kitchens everywhere, and navy blue, like almost a black.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
have to really love the color. If you're doing it for you, you have to be committed. That this is going to be something you're not going to get sick of. Um, so I don't know if I answered that question completely, but okay. So architectural interest. Where there is none, you can always add it. Um, this is that little house in the middle picture that had no architectural interest, no visual character. Uh, it was a home that I bought from. It was an estate. Two siblings who I think were almost. I don't know. They were probably in their mid 70s, and their father had just passed away, and he had lived in it for 48 years and had done nothing to it. So it was in incredible disrepair. But one of the things that I did is I took down that wall between the living room and kitchen area, again, because it was so small. It just opened it up a little bit more. And then I had that beam put in. Uh, and then that piece above it, I think I bought probably I would say probably a consignment store or an antique store. It looks like driftwood there, but it's not. It almost has an Asian kind of look to it. And I just hung it up there just so it was, had
What
some visual.
shed? No.
So if I were to like continue on here, I probably would have done, you know, molding on, at the top of the ceilings. I mean, I could have done a lot, but again, I was selling this house and I didn't want to put all that money into it. The next, uh, this egg and dart molding that you see, and that wasn't even painted at that time when I took this picture, is from my condo in Boston. Now, this, despite the fact that it was built in 1899, I was actually surprised. I think they took out a lot of the amazing things about this place and what it used to be when they converted it to condos, or throughout the years, which is just a shame. I hate to see when that happens because it's so lovely to have those kinds of things in a space. It just makes a huge difference. So I was able to source this egg and dart molding out of California and Canada, and had that installed. And I installed it throughout this entire unit, except for bathrooms. And it is one of my favorite things about this unit in Boston. And I didn't do it in the kitchen, obviously, because there was nowhere to put it. I brought the cabinets all the way up to the ceiling. And I would suggest too, if you can do that, I would. If you have an opening above your cabinets, there are ways that you can enclose that too. And I just think that it brings your eye up, and not into the sort of blank space. So I'm going off a little bit, but that's so yeah, and there are different ways too that you can add architectural interest. I mean, even that fireplace in the middle uh, picture, that was from a neighbor's house behind this house. And I was literally walking by, and it was outside, like leaned up against a dumpster. And somebody was there, and I asked them, I said, "Is it okay? Are you doing anything with this?" And they're like, "No, we're going to throw it out. Do you want it?" And I'm like, "I would love it." They were like, "We'll just come and grab your vehicle and I'll help you load it in." And that, so I took that and I actually had it repaired. There was some damage on the bottom, which you can't even see. And I painted it. And it's actually the same color as the color of that island. It's sort of just a very pale, like grayish. It's like a beige gray color. And I did that also too, so that, one room leads into the next. Like the color, you can see there's some rhyme and reason to it. Um, what other things are in there that I could talk about? Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, you'll see some of the light fixtures too that I use are definitely a throwback. The one in the kitchen I found on Facebook Marketplace, and I just love that light. I did have to take it to be looked at to see if it needed it. It was actually from a mansion in Situate, that it was taken out of. So I had it repaired. It didn't need a lot of work. The lanterns too were actually Home Depot. Home Depot or Ballard Design. I'm sorry, they might be Ballard Design. Clean lines. So this is now the piece to the left obviously is an antique. It's a hat stand. But I would say it has clean lines simply because I know it's more Gothic in its style or Victorian, but it's just got clean lines. The two matching armoires below are great. And that's another way to create symmetry. You could have two cabinets like that you could put on either side of a window that would bring more symmetry to that space. The small sectional, has pretty clean lines. And I think even for sofas, I know the urge sometimes to get like these big fluffy things that you can sink into, pieces of furniture. And I do get that, but I think that you can find equally as comfortable pieces of furniture, sofas, sectionals that are not quite as almost romantic. Like that to me is a very romantic style when it's got the curved arms, and sometimes that can work. Like if you have a camelback sofa, which hardly anyone uses now, and would say only probably in a very formal room would you use that, but that does have a rolled arm, but it's not huge. It's not this oversized thing. I actually remember my brother and sister-in-law buying a house, and it was pretty small. And what was actually, and not funny because they wouldn't find it funny, I'm sure if I was telling you this, so I'll have to make sure they don't see this recording, is they bought the largest sectional I had ever seen. I mean, it took up the entire space of their living room, and it was almost interfering with the line to get into their kitchen. So, and that big furniture thing was big a few years ago. I see sometimes some just in mostly in sectionals that it's definitely back, or maybe never left. But if you can go for, you know, places that just take up a little less real estate and just have some clean lines to them. I mean, mid-century modern is a great example of having clean lines in their furniture pieces. accessory pieces. I mean, that was just one era where, you know, you found that a lot. You definitely find it in contemporary. Um, so when I talk about classic timeless style, that can be in contemporary as well. But um, here you can see that it's certainly this piece to the left would not be considered uh, contemporary. It would be considered, you know, more of an antique. And I don't know what people's feelings are about antiques, but I would love to know because I just did an assessment with a client and I said, you know, would you be interested in having any kind of antique presence in this room? And he said, I'm going for traditional, not old. So um, I personally believe too that, you know, the one older piece in a room is fabulous, um, because it really does show a sense of, you know, past and present. And that green hutch that was shown in the very beginning, that has been in more places in my homes than I could ever imagine. It's amazing that it still fits everywhere. It's just, and it's probably, that's got to be more than 100 years old. And I just love it. It's just got so much character that I couldn't find today if I went into Jordan's Furniture or our house, or, and they have great pieces, but it, I wanted something that really had a lot more character to it. So I think that's it on this one. Oh, the other thing too that I just want to point out is the clean lines. I had all of these really hideous, you know, builder grade lights all over this house. And I did switch them all out for schoolhouse lights, which are incredibly reasonable. That's the light in the ceiling on the third room that you can see. Um, Really very reasonable. You can get them at Lowe's or Home Depot or online. And that was just a quick, easy fix. I really believe lighting can make a huge difference in upgrading and elevating a space. And it's probably one of the least expensive ways to do it. And paint, of course. But the other thing too is that you'll see some, you know, the original artwork here, and the one on the right is my son, a portrait I had done of him when he was about 4, and uh, was so happy that I did that. It was a huge investment at the time. I found somebody who worked out of Lowell, Massachusetts, Tom Gill. I don't know if he's still around or not, but he came to my house and took pictures of my children, and then came back. I told him what size I wanted because I found those frames at a place like Hobby Lobby. It was a place in Arlington that was around a long time ago. And because framing can be one of the most expensive things about artwork. And he did all 3 of them. And it's just, I always say if my house were on fire and I were leaving, those would be the 3 things I'd take. But there is something really amazing about having real artwork in your home. The other portrait is one that I had a lot, many years ago. It reminded me of my mother when she was young. And I always say if that person could speak, if she had eyes, it probably wouldn't be good at that. She's also traveled with me everywhere in all of these spaces. So just a sideline to clean lines is, you know, if you can invest in that, that's great. It doesn't have to be crazy. Mass College of Art, if you're in Massachusetts, has, I think every year they end up having some kind of exhibition or show where you can buy original artwork. Etsy is a great resource. Even companies like Minted too, I think, are selling original artwork for very reasonable prices. So I would look into that if that's something of interest to you. Continuous patterns. Now this looks busy, especially all put together. But one thing, and I just worked with a client on this too, is that they had a rug in their family room. They're redoing everything else, but they thought they might want to keep the rug. And when they sent me a picture of it, you know, his complaint was that, you know, it was a little too geometric. And hers was that, you know, it's just been around for so long that maybe we need to get something new. And I can't describe this quite well enough, but there were basically 3 squares in the middle of this long, big rectangle rug. And after doing some research and figuring out what other pieces they might want to have, I really recommended that they not keep that rug. And they really wanted to know why. Not that they were questioning, my opinion, but they were like, okay, just can you tell us why? And I said, sure. Um, Having a rug like that, where there are three squares in the middle, again, it just makes your eyes stop. You're like one, two, three. What you want, what continuous patterns do, whether they're geometric, whether it's just a texture, so it doesn't have to be these prints that we see here. Um, it just keeps your eye moving. So you're not stopping at any one point, which is, it makes a big difference in design. And when you see it like from one room to the other, too, you can get a sense of why that's important. I just renovated. This is my entryway in Boston, and I just had it wallpapered. And I just love that wallpaper. It's just very kind of classic. It's called Wisteria by Farrow and Ball. And as soon as it went up, I was like, why didn't I do this like first thing? But which was probably better that I didn't, because I was still moving things and it could have gotten ruined. But um, you see that continuous pattern in there. It's not, and this is very true of very old. If you go to any historic homes and look at them, you will see patterns that are continuous. There's nothing that's sort of spotty. Um, and I think that is, it's why it works so well. It just allows your eye to move, and it just brings, continuity to that whole area. I mean, I just love that wallpaper. Um, this is where I kept the black and white floor versus putting hardwood in, which I could have done, and that would have been fine too. But I really, because I wanted to keep with the time that my condo was built, I wanted to stick to that. So again, that's individual choice. The middle picture is an amazing wallpaper. It's called, I think, Ming's Garden, I think. And it's, again, you can just see that continuous pattern. You just keep moving with it. You don't stop anywhere. The one on the right is a toile. It's a very pale toile. I don't know if it's sort of a scene. The French use it quite a bit. I think it originated also in China too. And it's just, then that's a very subtle one. There are some that are much more dramatic. But that's an example of one that is subtle, but again, it's the same continuous pattern over and over again. So what I recommended to them that they do in purchasing the rug is to really think about, do they want a rug that he doesn't like geometric shape? So that was sort of out. But I said, you could get one that has a pattern in it, and that's okay. Or just a texture, if you just wanted to go with something plainer. That would work as well. I'm not sure if this is making any sense to people, but I'm happy to take questions too. If you have something too that you wanted to show me, or a picture, I'd be happy to look at it later. So continuous patterns is, you can't go wrong with them. And there's the green hutch again. The past, present, and future. So, this hutch is just, it's worked in almost every home that I've purchased, renovated, and then ultimately sold. And I have it now in Boston. Believe it or not, it fits in this one perfect spot. So I was lucky that I could get it in here. In fact, it's terrible to say, I actually was telling people, I'm looking for a condo that will fit this green hutch, that this green hutch will fit in. And that's kind of an exaggeration, but I really would have been devastated if I had to give that up. So I do think it's nice to have, something from the past. It can be something sentimental too. I mean, a lot of people get really, I always tell people, like, when you're cleaning things out, do the sentimental stuff last, because you will get so bogged down in that you're not going to make any progress on anything else. And there's ways to repurpose things. I had actually my grandmother's wedding gown made into a gown for a naming ceremony for my daughter. And I still have that. And that's really important to me because it's something of hers that now is my daughter's. And that's a great way to, to preserve those kinds of, memories, but, older items that you would like to use again, maybe, or just enjoy. And you could even shadow box that. You could do a lot of other things with that, especially I think I did when she was younger. Um, so having something from the past is just a great way to bring more visual interest too. I mean, you don't want your home to look like it fell off the page of a Pottery Barn. And I love Pottery Barn, so there's a lot of great things there. But you want it to look curated, like it's taken time for this to happen. It just wasn't something that you ripped a page out of and said, okay, this looks good. I'm just going to do everything this way. Um, and by bringing in some of those elements, you can more easily do that. I'm a huge fan of thrift stores, consignment stores, antique stores. And that's, you can see me taking a picture of that mirror. Um, that was at the Cape, actually. I found that in a little tiny hole in the wall consignment store and just fell in love with it. I just thought it was so interesting. And I personally have a love of Asian influence, and not everybody does, and that's okay. And I didn't even realize until I looked at that closely. You can actually see, I don't know if I can point it out here, but there is a little bit of an Asian influence in that mirror. And I have that now in my entryway. Um, so that's something that is hard to get now. Like you can't go into a department store and find those very easily. And if you did, they'd be probably really, really expensive. Um, Now, this light fixture right here is new. I bought it from a gentleman from Etsy. I think he's from Israeli. I'm pretty sure, and it's a bird cage. And I don't know if you can see it here. I can probably try to show you. um, but it's something that I wanted to have something that was big. This is the largest room I have in my condo, but I didn't want it to be like over the top, chandelier, craziness because it's not that big. Um, so I thought that was just a really interesting design. And I actually have found Etsy to be great for light fixtures. I found them for my bathroom, I think. I'm trying to think. Yeah, my bathroom and I think this room. And he was great to work with. I actually asked him to add more lighting in it, light bulbs, because it seemed it wouldn't be bright enough. And he did that. He was easy to work with. And so there's lots of things too that you can, find that are new and that will, again, stand the test of time for the future. Black element. So we talked about that earlier, but I think, having a little bit of black in a room is a good thing. Obviously, it's an easy way to do it if you have a fireplace. This is a tip and trick too, but you can have really horrible brick that you just can't stand, or even tile, like for at the hearth of the fireplace. I have painted that black, and it's just turned the whole look around in an hour. So that it's just a great and inexpensive way to update something very quickly and have it just a more current, but also, probably timeless look. That probably was what was done years and years ago, unless it was tile that was gorgeous. And you can certainly do that too. That's more money. But if you just are wanting some quick fixes, that's a good idea. This was a bed in the picture to the left. It actually was a 4-poster bed at one point, and we took those off. I can't quite recall why. It might have been ceiling height or some issue like that. And those pillows over to the right are IKEA deals. I think the plaid ones have a black edging, and those are Ralph Lauren. And I got those, I think, at Home Goods. So there's lots of, and I got the coffee table there too, which was a little bit higher, which sometimes can be good, especially if you're eating in that room a lot. which I was at the time. So that was from Home Goods as well. So it's got a black iron bottom and then the wooden top. And of course, the fireplace tools are brass. The light fixture in the bedroom is black. So you don't have to go crazy with it. Um, that comes up a lot too, where people don't want any black. And I think they're thinking back to, do you remember the black lacquered furniture of, what was that, the 80s? I have a feeling that's what people think of when they say, no, no, I don't want any black elements. But I think adding some, just it makes it more interesting. And then I love to talk about this one, high-low investments. This is, I never, sometimes I will spend the money. I will. It's like, I like it too much. I want it. I know I'm going to be happy with it. And I do it. And I generally never look back. I mean, when I make that decision, I know that it's something that I like and I will like for a long time. So probably the only thing that I'm looking at in this picture right now that I spent a fair amount of money on is that rug. This is another, I'm going to give you all my tricks tonight, but I love Normak rugs, and it's Nourmak. I think Norison is the company that puts them out, but you can Google it. This is a very bright sort of, there's black in that too, obviously. Rug. It's now in my bedroom, but I like it because everything else is so sort of neutral that it brings a little more life into that space. And again, this is all personal choice because I've done very plain too, just like in the other room on the right, that sunroom with the same furniture almost. The table was different. That table in the middle, I got for about $50. I think I found that maybe on Craigslist. I went out, or I hired someone to pick it up and brought it to my house, and now my daughter has it in her apartment. So it's I just wanted a round table. I think having a lot of angular spaces, you need some round things in there. So that's probably where I spent money. I did not spend money on the chairs. They're not the Serena and Lily, who I love, and I love those chairs of hers. But these are indoor, outdoor. I think I got them online. I can't remember where, but they were really, really reasonable. And I just like them. They're just a classic bistro chair. And again, not a tremendous amount of money. I love the scale in the back, and I bought that at an antique store, and it wasn't crazy expensive either. I used to think of antiques as being really expensive, and the truth is they're really not. You can get some very interesting things for not a lot of money at all. The mirror to the left, I told you I was into the sort of Asian motif, and that definitely is a representation of that. I bought that, I want to say probably 10 years ago at a consignment store in Acton, Massachusetts. I lived in Concord for many, many years. And I bought it. I loved it. I used it. And then I saw online on Facebook Marketplace, the exact same mirror, same dimensions, same everything. So I had to have it because what I did is I have it now I'm sitting at my table now, but I have on each side of my table, there's a big window. I have each one of those mirrors on top, and there's a matching smaller piece of furniture below. So if you see something too that you love, you have to get it, whether it's Home Goods or an antique place or a consignment store, you really should buy it if you know that you love it. This next room was a sunroom that was in that very little house. And I purchased that hutch, which is small. I got that, I think, also at the same place in Acton. And that actually is a Moore and McPherson. So if anybody lives in this area, they know about, I think they were in Cambridge. for many, many years. I don't think they're in business anymore, but they had some great pieces, and I was able to get that there for very little. And that table was actually a desk, but because it was such a narrow space, I thought I would just use it as a table, and it worked out well. So it's great if things can be, multi-purpose or multifunctional too. That's even better. Um,
Nancy, are
uh-huh.
those wicker chairs?
They look like they are. They're a plastic.
Okay.
Um, they're really a good, which normally would be like, don't do that. But they really are, they were a great like reproduction
Yeah,
of
I like them.
what the others are. And, I just had a client though buying these, the Serena and Lily ones for her island. And I mean, they're gorgeous. They're just beautiful, but she's not moving, she's staying and she loved them. And um, they have 2 sales a year, I think. And so she was able to get in on that. Um, and that's another thing I'd look out for, as you become familiar with stores that you really like or gravitate to. Typically they do have sales, and it would be good to sort of scope that out and figure out when they are. But
Those would be great with kids to have be
they
able to wipe
are
them.
they're indoor outdoor, so I mean I could have used them outside if I wanted to. And yeah, you can just spray them down and wipe them off. And yeah, gosh, you're
Yeah.
bringing back memories. I haven't thought about that stuff in a long time. Okay, so avoiding trends. And, this woman looks great. She looks like, I would say, timeless or classic in her outfits. But I think that it's, we all sort of can get sucked into what is the latest fad or trend, like the black kitchen, and I'm not saying that's totally a trend. Black, again, because I like black, I think is a classic. I actually painted my doors in this unit black, all of my doors black. And I have brass and glass doorknobs. I changed all that out. Um, but you want to sort of stay away from things that are like super trendy. Like I can't stand when they come up with the color of the year. Um, all the paint companies do it, and it's just, for what? And some of them are crazy. Some of them are like, that might be a nice color maybe to wear, but I wouldn't necessarily want to put it on anything, um, or on a wall. But just be careful with it, because you can get sucked in and end up, unfortunately, losing some money if you tire of that easily. And then there are exceptions to every rule because I find that, you know, I just, if you really love something, you should have it. This isn't a trend, but like I'm into blue and white, um, like china, blue and white vases. Well, I have enough to last 10 lifetimes. But every time I see one, I'm like, oh, would that look better than the other one? And maybe I can switch that out. Um, and I'm really just trying to just stop. Like I have no room for anything. That's one good thing about moving into a very small space. You just can't make a lot of those decisions very often. Um, but if you really love something, you should do it. You should get it. So do you want me to recap sort of all these points? I should have
Yeah.
probably done.
And maybe
So
see if anybody has questions after.
yeah, I'd love to do that. Sure. So one I said, think of a neutral palette, especially with big furniture pieces, and even walls. Symmetry, having that balance in a room. Uh, Classic materials. So I mentioned the subway tile and some other things. Infusing architectural interest, especially in a space that has none. And if they have it, then really accentuating that. Clean lines, continuous patterns, having elements of past, present, and future, black elements, high-low investments, and avoiding trends except when you just can't resist. And I'm happy to, I want to give this out to everybody. I'm happy to, anybody who's on the call, I don't think we have a huge group tonight, but I would be happy to do a 20 to 30-minute consult. Um, so if you have a specific question on something, that's always a good way to do it. If you have a picture, send it to me and I can take a look and give you my opinion.
That's great, Nancy.
And yeah, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, my email is right there. People who want to do that. And Michael's at Nancy Michaels Interiors.
And I will also be sending out a link to the recording as well as all of Nancy's information tomorrow. So you'll have that.
Okay,
and somebody
great.
asked,
Did I stop?
Yep. Someone asked if they'll get a copy of the slides,
Sure.
maybe to get a closer look at the images.
Yep, I can do that.
Okay. Does anyone have
Yeah, I
any
know it's
questions?
hard. I actually took some out. I think I had 4 or 5, and I'm like, nobody is going to be able to see this. So I'm happy to share the slides. That's great.
Okay. Wonderful. Yeah, so if anyone has any questions right now, you can feel free to ask. I'm not sure. I think you can unmute yourself, or you can put in the chat and I can vocalize it. And Nancy, that's so generous of you to offer free consults as well for more, maybe for questions.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to, because I think sometimes too, you might not be sure of something or just want another opinion. I mean, I think that's really that's what helps. I think that's why people actually would choose to use somebody like me, simply because they really want a sounding board of, I really like this. I think this is the direction I want to go in. How do I pull that all together? Or is this piece really keeping, those goals down? And I really just have to part with it. And I'm honest too. And I don't think that you should throw everything out. I'm also a believer too, that when you buy something, really, you should have it a very, very long time. I mean, some things do need to be replaced, but
Yeah.
generally speaking, if you can keep things, that's what I would recommend.
I love how resourceful you are, shopping, because it doesn't have to be necessarily, cost you an arm and a leg to be beautiful in a
No,
room.
it's an
And I love
addiction.
how you shop. Yeah.
It's an addiction for me, to be told. It really is. I mean, it's almost crazy, but I love it when I can do it for someone else too, or I have 3 people that I'm looking for things for, and can just shoot a picture over and say, do you like this or not? I'm here and I can grab it. And I think people like that too, because you don't have to spend a fortune. I mean, and I think I said this too when you interviewed me before, that decorators, many of them don't have a bad reputation, but many of them are very, very cost prohibitive. And you want to make sure
Right.
you're doing things in a way that you can afford, but that still will get you the look that you want. And again, sometimes you have to spend money. I mean, I do say that too. I'm not saying that everything has to be a bargain, because
Right.
everything can't, unfortunately, but
That's
when you
like
can,
that
it's good.
curated look that you spoke about, some, low end, high end, old, new. But someone had
Right.
a
And
question. Trisha was asking, what do you suggest for a paint color for a whole house in which you plan to rent and then sell in a few years?
okay, I've got it. Well, one I love is, now, do you hate grays? Lately I've had people who are hating gray. No?
Yeah,
Yes.
unmute. Trisha, do you want to unmute?
Mute.
Yeah.
I don't mind gray, but I heard that that beige was in creamy colors or more coming in. So didn't know if I just should stick to that. And the house is a little on
Well,
the darker side. I don't know if that
yeah. I mean,
matters.
okay, given that, well, here's one that I love and I've used it myself: Balboa Mist by Benjamin
Oh,
Moore.
oh yeah.
And sometimes too, there's a company called Samplize.
Yep.
Buy for $5 a sheet of it that sticks.
Uh-huh.
It's so worth it to do because, this place looks completely different and it's the same color, but depending on the time of day or
Hmm.
night. So I think that, I've lightened colors also that
Oh,
I've really,
okay.
they're just like a little too intense when you put it up. Richmond Gray was one that I was in love with also, but I would lighten that a lot. It's more of a gray. I think it reads more green than anything, even though it says Richmond Gray. I think it's more green. Um, the one that I am really loving right now is White Dove, and that's Benjamin Moore, and that is throughout my entire condo right now. I did every
Oh,
single
wow.
room,
Okay.
and I would
I have white
recommend
dove.
White Dove.
I have white dove trim from when I had a painter a few years ago, and she said white dove, and the trim is lovely.
Yeah, I love that color. I don't think you can go wrong with that. It's a warmer white. Do you know what I mean? It's not a
Okay.
stark,
Then what would you do for the trim if you did white dove?
I did Chantilly lace with
Oh, yeah.
with White Dove
Okay.
or Simply White.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I
Okay.
just think it's a really smart idea to paint your entire house one color.
You think it
And
is or isn't?
I think it's an excellent idea.
Okay.
Again, because your eye keeps moving. Do you know what I mean? Unless obviously I have wallpaper in this area, and that's something different. But the flooring is different in there too. But typically, it's just the other thing too is how many times have you wanted to repaint a room and you have no idea, what color you used? I mean,
Hmm.
it's just easier, and if you like it, I just think it's great to do it throughout, and
Yeah.
especially if
Okay.
you're sewing, I would do that absolutely.
Because I think we were looking like edgecomb gray, I think was one
Yeah,
color. Yeah.
that's nice too.
Or pale oak, I think.
Those
But
are
is it,
both.
so do you think it's true that cream and beige are the colors that are coming in, or the
Well,
new
to me, I
trend?
think white dove is kind of a cream color.
Right, right.
Um, and I don't know. I think if you're going with that kind of a neutral, it doesn't matter what's in or out because if you were going with like a really, a color that you walk into the room and you just know what color that is. I think sometimes I actually like colors that you don't quite know what it is, if that makes any
Hmm.
sense. Like, is that
Yeah,
gray?
yeah.
Right? Is that great? Because it it allows also for more opportunity when choosing furnishings
This is
too.
true too.
You
Yep.
can't tell like what, and I tell people too, like, why don't we do the paint color after you do the rug? Unless you just want to pick a paint color and just live with it. And I'm sure we can find a rug, but like if you're going to start, I always start from the bottom,
Hmm.
if you're replacing rugs. If you're not, I would just go with a very neutral color. And I mean,
I
my
think we're
vote for
just
you,
doing hardwood floors everywhere. So
perfect. My vote would be White Dove simply because you said it was darker.
that's true. Yep. All
So I
right.
would go
Thank
with
you.
the lightest neutral that you can find.
Okay. Thank you.
Those. Sure.
Karen jumped off, but she did say earlier she knows someone who paints from photos of dogs. So if
Oh yeah.
that was useful for
You know,
anyone to put
on
a name
Etsy,
down.
Etsy does that too. You could send a
Okay.
picture of someone that you wanted a portrait done of, and you can get that done. It's amazing what you can do now that is available to us that wasn't.
Yeah. I actually know a local art broker, like he or she brokers for local artists,
Oh, that's
which
great.
is kind of cool. So probably more modern, more contemporary, but
Right.
some really nice pieces.
Oh, that's awesome. I do. I
Yeah.
think that's just something that really, um, it's just, I don't know. There's more movement in it. There's just something about it that I just think it sort of just elevates the look of a room or a space.
And can I ask you another question? What do you think about countertops these days? Like, can you still get away with granite for kitchens?
Do you have granite now?
Well, no, but we were thinking of, I like the quartz, but with the rental, I'm thinking granite might be a little more user friendly.
What the price difference isn't that huge from
Hmm.
last time that I looked. If you're going to do something completely different, I would do quartz, I think.
Hmm. Okay.
What's your concern about quartz? That it can chip?
No, I'm just thinking if people are used to the granite and putting hot stuff on it, you can't do that with quartz or else it'll get ruined, obviously, but I don't know. And are white kitchens still a thing?
I think you can't go wrong with a white kitchen, personally. I mean,
Okay.
I'm one client, that's what they're doing. The other client is trying to come up with the opposite of that somehow. And which is fine. We're just trying to explore what combination of things that they would like. But I don't think you can ever go wrong with that.
Right. That's what I'm like. I mean, where we're going to rent or resell, I think that appeals to more people. Whereas my personal kitchen, I would like the navy
Right.
island, but
I know. Well, I think though, if you have an island, you could do that. You could consider doing a second color
okay.
because that is definitely on trend. And that's not such a huge commitment. I have a client also who has beautiful cherry wood cabinets, but they've been in her house is probably 20 something years old, and they're gorgeous. There's really no need to replace them, and to paint them seems like sacrilegious. Like, why do that?
I
They're
know,
just
right?
the way they are. But she has an island that looks like a piece of furniture, and I
Yes.
said, if you want to test the waters, I do it with this.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and maybe we just do a section of it, or like we get a bunch of those sampleized things to
Hmm.
see, do you really like it? Because I know you're going to spend, I think they're like $6 or $7 a piece, but it's worth it to do that than to get something done and then hate it.
True.
I loved that light gray color that you had in one of your photos of the island. It was like
Oh, yeah. And that wasn't Balboa Mist. That was a little bit darker.
I
If
think
I can find
that would
I'll
be
let you know.
nice for even the cabinets, so it's not maybe so stark as white, but still very neutral.
Yeah, or do the lower cabinets that color.
Yeah,
Right. That's
that'd be
true.
If you're
beautiful.
going
That's true.
to a darker color, make it on the ground. You know what I mean? Like bring it down
Yeah,
and do the
Okay.
light top. Um, but yeah, that would be because that is pretty neutral. And gray, everybody, most people, except this one client of mine, they love gray.
Okay.
So I don't think I know I wouldn't be, I think that you can be. I mean, I'm saying don't go too dark, but I'm looking at my kitchen, which is pretty dark. Um, but for whatever reason, it doesn't bother me there. Maybe because it is so small. Um, because it's a bathroom. It was a bathroom. So I try to be in there as little as possible. But I love it. Honestly, my kitchen is like my favorite room in my place. I do.
Aw.
I go in there. It's like a little jewelry box. I mean, I just love
Yeah.
it. It's so small.
That's cool.
It's just got everything I need, but nothing more. It's not easy to cook in or have people over and, feed them, but it's totally fine for me.
And
I'll try next.
I don't know.
I'm sorry.
If other people want to talk, let them go ahead. I don't want to take over here. What's in for window treatments? Is it just simple like what you have behind you?
Yeah, I just have, well, yeah, I wish these were simple. These are cost a fortune because
Oh,
I'm right.
okay.
No, they're simple though. And they're
Right.
aesthetic. I'm just like, honestly, I just wanted this crown molding to show. So then I was like, let's just let that be
Right.
the feed. But they're Hunter Douglas. They were custom done, but I'm on
Oh,
a corner. So I'm overlooking the Boston Commons, which is beautiful.
nice.
I'm like a fishbowl. I'm on the 4th floor, so I'm not so high up that people couldn't see.
Uh-huh.
So I just felt like I really needed to have them. But I went with a very, it almost looks like a very, not totally silk shantung that has more of those nubs in them. It doesn't have as many, but it's very kind of plain. And after I paid the bill and I saw them, I was like, it should have been better. Like, but I didn't want anything differently. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes
Right.
these are
Yeah.
floored windows, so you're just going to spend the money on them, unfortunately. But that's the
They're
way it
beautiful.
goes. Thank you. So what's in for window treatments? I think anything with the big swaggers, like the big heavy, is no longer. I'm trying to convince one client who has a lot of that to just, even if you just did panels, because you had to have
Mhm.
something, maybe even do that by just taking off that top piece. Because
Mhm.
if you like the fabric and the pattern, that's an easy fix. If you have that, I would just take that top piece off. If you're thinking about getting something, I'm a big fan of panels and also blinds with texture. Like I love bamboo blinds. You saw those
Okay.
in pictures of mine, and those are really inexpensive. I got those at Home Depot. They're not automatic. They're not. I can't program them, but I just, as far as an aesthetic, I think they look great. And I love texture too. Texture in a room is really important, whether it's texture on your pillows, texture in a nubby blanket. You want to have all those different kind of elements at play, ideally.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions for Nancy? We're over the hour, but
Oh,
maybe one more.
Just wanted to say thank you. Did a wonderful job as usual. I took
Thank you
diligent notes.
Excellent. And I'll get you the deck too, Carrie. So you can pass it on.
thank you.
Thanks a
Miss
lot.
Nancy.
Thanks very much. Really interesting.
Let's talk in
Thanks.
February.
Okay.
And I hope. Yes. Thank you so much for coming, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you for hosting.
You too.